So you have all heard about the Samsung 990 Pro. But what if I told you that you're probably buying the wrong SSD? You can save money and actually get even a better performance. What I'm talking about is this guy here. This is the Crucial P310, and you can get it with a heatsink or without the heatsink. This guy is less than half the price. Now, let me put it this way. This Crucial P310 with the 1TB version, if you're a creator who uses Adobe Creative Cloud, this guy can cost you $9. This is probably one of the cheapest SSDs you can buy, and it beats the 990 Pro. Don't believe me? Let me show you what I mean. Licensing Windows is cheap and easy with whokeys.com, and if you use the code TN20, you get an extra discount. Complete the purchase, copy the key, and paste it to the activation settings. And you're all done. Also, check out their Microsoft Office 19 license and use the same code TN20 for the extra discount. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below. I'm the best bang for buck guy. I love to find the best bang for buck SSDs, products, anything out there, and I think I have found another one, especially if you're a creator like I already mentioned. But let's get that out of the way first. Now, if you look at this box, and I believe this is with quite a few of the Crucial SSDs, because I remember when we reviewed the Crucial T705, the fastest SSD that I've ever tested, this bad boy, remember that guy? Yeah, when we reviewed that one, it had the same thing on the box, but this time they've made it a little bit more tame. It says here, Adobe Creative Cloud, all apps planned, 1 month subscription included with this purchase, which costs $60. Right now I'm seeing this drive go on Amazon for $60. I don't know if it's the actual heatsink version or the non-heatsink version, but that makes this drive super affordable and really cool extra feature. Now, some of the specs about the P310. It is a Gen 4 drive. It can read and write up to 7,100 megabytes per second. I'll show you my results in a minute and what you can actually get. It uses a host memory buffer, so there's no DRAM. There is 3 versions of the 2280 available. So the longer SSDs can get 512, 1TB and 2TB version, but the 2230, the tiny SSDs, they go for 1TB and 2TB. So if you're looking to get the SSD for your handheld gaming devices or some of the small laptops that only offer 2230 M.2 SSDs, you can actually have this in that variant as well, which is really cool. Let's take a look at the sequential read and write speed. So these are the ones that you see on the box that no one actually in real world really uses, but we'll get to the real world in a minute. But just to kind of see what they say on the box, will we get this? So sequential read, they're both 1TB and 2TB version, so I tested both of them. They get about 7,000 megabytes per second read, which is very close to the 7,100. Honestly, no one's really gonna see that speed anyway. You'll be bottlenecked by some other bandwidth or slot speed or something like that. Even if you transfer from one drive to the other on Windows, it'll be File Explorer limitations, not the drive's limitations. Then we look at the write speed. Interestingly here now, the 2TB version gets a little bit faster speed, roughly around 200 megabytes faster speed, as you can see in there. Now, at the moment, these aren't as fast as the Samsung 990 Pro. As you can see, obviously, they're a little bit slower, like 100 megabytes slower on the read, a few hundred megabytes slower on the write speed. But that is just kind of utopia benchmark. What you really want to know is something where this is in real world application. So what we're testing here is a quick system drive benchmark, which mimics a real world use, where you use the drive as a secondary drive, where you're opening, closing photos, where you do lots of little things, but they're randomly scattered all over this. It's not a sequential read of transferring this massive big file to there or something like that. You're opening, closing documents, saving documents, opening pictures, something like that, playing back video, things like that. Now, how good is this drive doing that? Now, looking at the P310, it is literally within less than 0.5% of the 990 Pro. Pretty much exactly the same performance. Now, the 1TB is a little bit slower, maybe 1-2% slower, but the 2TB one matches the performance of 990 Pro, which is super impressive. One of the best Gen 4 drives that I have tested. As you can see on the graph, there's like an upper part of the Gen 4 drives that have really good controllers and have really good random read and write speeds in there. The Solidigm P40 Pro 4 Pro, which is one of my favorite ones, and the Samsung 990 Evo and Pros. Look at them, they're just within a couple of percent of each other. In fact, this P310 is faster than the WD Black SN850X, KC3000 from Kingston. That's really impressive. Let's have a look at data drive benchmark, which is more using the drive as a data drive. So maybe a larger drives and having a bit more like archival storage on it, and how would it act in there. So this benchmark runs through that and really tests, read and write speeds on there. And again, we're seeing right on top of the charts there, very much next to the Samsung 990 Pro, which is still a little bit faster. I'm gonna get to that. The 990 EVO Plus 2TB is literally performing exactly the same as the 1TB version of it. In fact, what's interesting is the Teamgroup T4's Z540, which is a Gen 5 drive, is slower than this Gen 4 drive, which is really impressive performance of the Crucial P310. You can see below the chart a lot of the other very famous familiar drives that you have probably heard of, but this guy, a newer drive, they've got some magic in there to make it perform on top of the charts there. Let's take a look at full system drive benchmark, which I would argue is one of the most important benchmarks that you have for the SSD, because this mimics having an operating system or program drives on the SSD, which means you're trying to read 1,000 different little programs and little files all over the place. This is an actively working on the drive. You're running the OS system on it, which constantly writes and reads all sorts of random files, temporary and non-temporary, constantly working on it. Whenever you open a program, whenever you close a program, this is what this drive tests. So how good is this drive? You want to use it as an operating system drive. And as you can see, we've beaten all of the Samsung drives. It's just better. The 1TB and the 2TB, both better. In fact, these are one of the best Gen 4 drives I have ever tested. The Solidigm P44 Pro, they are slightly faster than 1 and 2TB version, a couple of percent faster. This is so flipping impressive by these Crucial P310, especially at the price point. It shouldn't make sense. It shouldn't be possible. It's insane. So if you look at something similar like a Lexar NM790, that is a lot further down there. Again, a little more expensive, but again, a host memory buffer without DRAM drive. Whatever Crucial's done here with the P310 for operating system drive, it just makes a ton of sense. Especially if you're a creator, think about the value proposition here. You get this drive for $9 and it performs so good. It's absolutely insane. Now, would you want to go with a Crucial T705 and get whatever 25% faster performance? Possibly, but you're going to pay more than double the price point. As you can see, the value proposition goes for the P310. Now, there is one more test, which is the drive consistency test. This is not kind of real world test for 99.9% of the people, but for some people in certain workflows where you're very heavy on the drive, where we write over 20 terabytes of files, we're gonna fill the drive multiple times and emptying this drive. This test takes roughly around 20 hours and I'll leave it overnight where the drive gets super hot and it really synthetically absolutely maximizes the drive's performance and sees how well the drive does in super heavy unsynthetic workloads. Some people have that type of workload, but let's say you're a creator who constantly ingests footage or loads lots of footage on it and then writes or reads from it and ingests lots of footage. It might be in your workflow, but even at that point, I don't know a lot of people who ingest 20 terabytes of files on it instantly or something like that. So looking at the 1TB and 2TB version, what I've seen in this test is if you've got a larger capacity drive, then it usually performs better. It's got more space and usually the way the caching and speed works, you have a better performance. As you can see, the 1 and the 2TB version here, they are exactly like that as well. The 2TB is a lot faster than the 1TB one. So if that is important to you, maybe worth going with the 2TB one. The other benchmarks didn't see that much of a difference between 1 and 2TB one, but the consistency test does see quite a big difference. And in here, they're not performing particularly amazingly. They're on the bottom end of the chart. And I guess this is one of the downsides of the drive, that in this workflow, they're not shining as well as the Samsung one. So if this is important to you, look at the Samsung drive. Now it's on the top of the charts. One last thing we want to talk about is the terabyte written spec. This drive comes with a 5-year warranty, but like all SSDs, they've got their lifespan. Like when you buy a car, you have, 5-7 years, and then X amount of miles that come with the warranty. The same with the Crucial P310. Now, what we've seen usually, the industry standard, what you see across the board, the average is 600 terabytes per 1 terabyte for the 5 years. That's like 100,000 kilometers for 5 years, whichever one you meet first is the warranty period. The same with the SSDs. This P310 is actually below the average and quite a bit. In fact, this is one of the lowest terabyte written specs that I have seen. So if you look at Samsung 990 Pro, for example, 600 for 1 terabyte, and then when you double the capacity, the terabyte written spec obviously doubles as well because you've got a bigger drive. It can, you can write more files on it, so the terabyte written spec doubles. Here we have 220 for 1 terabyte and 440 for 2 terabytes, which tells me that if I was a creator, I wouldn't use this drive particularly for my project drives. Now, 220 terabyte for 1 terabyte is still quite a lot, and if you're not very heavy on doing it. So let's break down the math for this. Over the 5 years, if you wrote 120 gigabytes of files on it and read off it, you still be within the warranty spec. So that means every single day for the next 5 years, write 120 gigabytes on it and then delete it or whatever. Then the next day you do exactly the same. If you do that for 5 years, that's kind of the warranty. If you exceed the 120 gigabytes per day, that would kind of be out of the spec. Let's say you do that 5 days and then over the weekend you don't write anything, and then the next week you write maybe 240 one day, but then nothing the other day. I don't think most people or 95% of people would write that much files on it. So it should be fine. I would say just for creators who maybe ingest a lot of footage all the time or working on it, that could be a problem. But even as a creator, I remember my media company days, you put the project on and maybe you edit for a couple of days or a week, you don't actually write any more files on it than, this one. So I think you'd still be within the spec, even if your project is 1 terabyte in size, you put all the files on it, you think, flipping heck, I wrote 1 terabyte in size, but it takes you a month to edit, you still be within the spec. So just think about that when you're thinking about buying this drive for your workflow. What I would recommend is using this drive for the operating system drive, because operating system doesn't use or write these big massive files on it. It does these little random read and write speeds. And at that point, when you're just using this for operating system drive, this drive will last you more than 5 years because you're not going to write that many files on it. The warranty will end in terms of years before you're going to reach the terabyte written spec. So that's what I think this drive is for. So this is a brilliant drive if you're looking for a budget operating system drive that actually outperforms its budget way more than it should cost. Question for you though, would you actually pay more to get the Gen 5 storage, or are you more interested in the Crucial P310? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. By the way, if you do want to pick up these drives, I'm going to leave them linked in the video description below where you can get them. Check out the heatsink version and the non-heatsink version, because if you already got a heatsink on your motherboard, you don't need the heatsink, so buy it without it because you can save even more money. If you are getting it in a PS5, for example, or somewhere like that, then get the heatsink version because it's slim, it keeps the drive cool if you don't have a heatsink on your motherboard. Most of the people I think would go with a non-heatsink and save even more money. So go check it out in the video description below and let me know how much this costs in your local country. I'd love to know. Thanks guys for watching. Bye bye.